So today I'm going to start cutting and buffing the body. And before I start, I want to go through how I set up here. So I start out with the table. This table just folds up. It's one that made several years ago. It's got a countertop on it. And I wipe everything down really good. I clean it before I set up. This has got some marks and stuff on it, but it's still clean. And then I get all my tools ready. And then this table will actually move around with the car, makes it kind of handy. So the tools that I need is a bucket with warm soapy water and a nice clean towel. I use that to wipe off my sanding dust, and I'll clean that water several times. Use 1500 grit sandpaper, 2500. Then I use 3000 and 4000, and these two are on this DA sander. It's a water bug, I believe they call it. I bought this several years ago. It's got an intermittent pad here, foam pad, so that makes it nice to go across body lines and edges, and you don't have to worry about burning through. If you don't have a DA sander like this, you can use blocks, just use the block sanders, and you can actually buy sandpaper that's 3000, 4000 as well. The other things I use is my flat blocks. This one here is really soft and works good for radiuses, edges, and so forth. And then these two are pretty hard, or stiff, I should say. And I like to use as big a block as I can use to start with. And I start with the 1500 grit paper on a block, and it's either one of these two blocks here is what I use. And I do that to flatten the 1500 out first. And if you use a softer pad, it'll kind of follow the contours of if you got any orange peel or whatever, and it won't cut it flat like a stiff pad will. Now this is soft, but it's a lot stiffer than that one. So it's not really hard. You don't want to have something too hard. So use those two blocks. I got an air hose, to dry things off, clean it off. I use a spray bottle with soapy water. Dust masks, so when you're buffing, it's always good to wear a dust mask. A variety of towels, soft towels for the buffing compound. I use for the coarse, I use this one, and then I'll use this for the medium, and I'll use this for the final polish cleaning. These are really soft. I've got a bag of rags here. These are paper rags or whatever they're called. They work good to dry it off after you sand. I've got a couple different buffers. I used to, basically all I ever had was a rotary buffer, and someone on Facebook had mentioned you should try one of these orbital buffers, so I bought one, and man, these things work great. Probably never going to go back to the rotary, but they're a little more expensive. So you can use the rotary. You can buy one and use it for a grinder as well if you like, and they're a lot more economical. I've got a smaller buffer here as well for getting in the tight spots. So if you were going to, if your budget was limited, which most people's are, as well as mine, I buy this stuff. I bought this several years ago, and now I've just bought my buffers. So my recommendation would be, just buy a tool at a time, like I did here. Now, if I had to choose between buying this and buying that buffer, I would get the buffer. And then I would use my 3,000 and 4,000, I'd just use a block. That's what I used to do before I bought this one. So anyways, that's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. And that's basically the setup. So I will get started here sanding and follow up with buffing and keep you posted. This just basically cleans the pads. It's part of that system. So, and then of course you got buffing compound. The final thing I want to mention is I put an apron on, and that works really good. If you're going to get buffing compound slinging up against you, or if you're leaning up against the car or something, or whatever you're buffing out, it's nice to have a clean, soft apron, so you don't have to worry about getting your belt up against the car and scratching it. The other thing I do is I take my rings off. I only wear my wedding ring. I take that off whenever I'm working on paint, sanding paint and buffing, because it's just too easy to scratch it. Okay, today I'm wet sanding the clear. So I've went over this just one quick time with 1500, and here I've went over it twice with 1500. I'll go over it with 2500 next. I wanted to show you how I do it. May not be the correct way to do it or the professional way of doing it, but my results are pretty good. So I'm using 1500 on a flat block. I like to use as big a block as I can on flat areas, and then I start going with different blocks on radiuses and so forth. This is a soft, it's not real hard, but it's pretty stiff. It is soft on the edges, so it won't gouge in and leave marks. So basically I try to do one area at a time, and I always try to go in short strokes. What I mean by that is I don't go crossed like this. Some guys want to do that. You think you're getting it done quicker, but actually you're creating more marks, and it's going to be harder to buff out. So I go across it, sand it in short strokes, wet it down. Again, short strokes. Just working one area at a time. And you can see the white, that's the clear. When you start breaking into the clear, you're opening it up. That white is the sand, the dust, I guess you might call it. It's floating in the water. So you notice I'm going in a hatch pattern, side to side. I'm not going straight in a line. That's key to preventing straight scratches or marks in your panel. Continue to go. I try to clean my sandpaper out every once in a while. Okay. So next I take warm soapy water and a rag. Dry it out, wring it out fairly good. Then I go across that and gather up all my grindings. You can see them on the rag. Flip that over to a clean area again. Clean it up. I change my water a lot. It's one thing when you're at this stage, you want to keep everything as clean as you can get it. You know, I've done a lot of grinding and metal and stuff, and I don't want to get any of those grinding little metal shavings into sandpaper, water, whatever. So you can see where I'm getting down to flat. These are low spots yet. You can see them. A few little dirt specks that landed in the clear. So typically, I break through it, and then I just work on those areas a little bit more with my big block. I'm leaning over this car. I don't want to hold that bottle and accidentally drop it. Sit it on the workbench. Again, you can see the white means I'm cutting into that clear. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Taking your time during this process is key to getting a nice finish. I may spend more time than what some guys do, but I'm not in a hurry. This is a black paint job. I want it to be as perfect as I can do it. Sometimes I take an air hose, or I'll have a fan sitting here blowing across it, and it dries it quicker. You can see I worked all that out. Still a little bit here and there, but that's pretty close. I'm going to hit that one spot just a little bit more right there. Using a big block like this, you're not going to create a dip where you could on, if you used your finger, tried to get that down in there, you're just going to create a little dip, and it's going to show up big time, especially on black paint or dark paint. So, okay. So that looks really good. Now, got a couple little spots back here and along this edge. And what I do is I'll use this smaller block, and it is soft, so you can flex down like around these radiuses and stuff here and back here. So I like to use that. A flat block where you've got a contour, you've got a better chance of breaking through the edge, going right through your clear. So I like to switch to this block here. Now just run that across that a couple times real slow. I don't want to break through this edge here. I'm still going to sand this with 2500, and so if there's a few little spots left, that will take it out. But the key to a good start is to get it flat, and you can't get it flat as well with 2500 or a soft like this. This will just follow all the contours, and so you don't want to, you want to flatten that out first. Even though this paint job, as you can see, is pretty flat. It's real flat. That clear laid out very nice. Got a little dust in it. Otherwise it laid flat. So, but you can still see it. You can still see just a slight orange peel. You want to try to get it really pretty close before going to the next finer sandpaper. Okay. See down along this edge here, I'll use this because it'll follow that curve. If you use too stiff of a block on these curves, you're taking more off here than this on the edges. You don't want to burn through this. First time you do it, probably a little nerving. You go through the process and you get it looking really good, and then you sand on it and you burn through it. As long as your clear is thick, you got a nice heavy coverage on it. 1500 won't burn through it too fast. Okay, I'm liking what I'm seeing. Here we go. Okay, the next step, I go with 2500. And I'll use this softer pad for that because I've already got it nice and level, so I'm not worried about cutting it to a point. Now, see, I've sanded everything in this direction. 2500, I'm going to go more in this direction. That way I can tell when I get through my 1500 marks. Okay, so I'm going to clean this one spot off so you can see the difference between 15 and 2500. And I think I'll put the camera on time lapse and finish sanding the top here so I can listen to a little Bob Seger. Little Bob Seger or Fleetwood Mac. Okay, hopefully the camera can pick that up. 15 and 2500. It's quite a bit of difference. This looks darker, this looks lighter or whiter because it's sanded a little heavier. After I get this all done, 2500, I'll go over it with 3000 and then 4000, and then I will clean it and start buffing it. So again, I'm going to put the camera on time lapse and go for it here, and I'll be back.